and what that means, and sometimes what we are born into uh, doesn't align with what modern day actually says. And we have a contract with our parents, and we have our contract with our Latinidad and with our culture, and at times. Um, uh, for sort of a younger generation, that kind of, or for any generation, depending on where it lands, right? Those ideas are challenged, and those traditions are challenged, and it's just this beautiful play about family and how they navigate relationships, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel super like to be a part of it. I play Marisol, and it's basically her story that we follow, and her coming back after, her first year of college, coming back home to this like Cuban American household that she grew up in, with her mom and her grandmother, and yeah, the fight between staying true to who you are as a woman of the 21st century, and as a Cuban woman being raised by in this culture and with these beliefs is something that I think is really interesting about this play.
Yeah. Also very universal.
Right.
I think it has crossed borders, right, and has crossed boundaries, and it has in terms of cultures, and we have had many audience members who have come in who are not Cuban, who have related to the show. We've also it's bilingual, and so like the audience is challenged either way. If you're a Spanish speaker, there's a lot of English in the show. If you're an English speaker, there's a lot of Spanish in the show. But somehow, it's really a beautiful thing when like the audience actually helps each other out to actually understand
Right.
the play, and that's happened quite a few times in our theater, where we do not use captioning to translate. We don't believe in that. We believe that theater is the great communicator, and that what we emote, how we feel on that stage, and how we communicate, that is what's actually going to let the sort of tell the audience what's going on, right? But we've watched the audience actually help each other out, which is actually really cool. When the English jokes land, everybody, and so the Spanish
Right.
audience is actually sort of tuned into that, and vice versa. It's really funny when all of the Spanish jokes land with the Latinos in the audience. The English speakers are like, I'm kind of understanding where that's going. It's fascinating to actually watch that
Right.
happen.
That's a different approach. I do the translation
Yeah.
for 1812,
Uh-huh.
and we do the captions with the machine in front.
Yeah.
And it works in a different way. I
Right.
mean, obviously,
Definitely, yeah.
but you sort of see people looking sideways to look at the Spanish version of whatever is going on stage. But that can be distracting.
Yes.
So it's like you're reading over there, and all of a sudden the action on the stage is lost.
Yeah. And you can't feel what's happening on the stage.
It's,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
it's not the ideal way to do it, but I don't know.
Yeah, but I think 1812 has a predominantly American audience and
Yes.
an English-speaking audience, and I think
It's a
that
comedy theater
yeah.
also.
Yeah, I also think, and me and Erisa Ann have been, because we are asked this question all the time, in terms of bilingual theater, about how will I understand the play if I'm an English speaker. We always say like English speaker audiences around the world have enjoyed opera for eons, and have gone, and yes, there's captioning, but most of the time what they're actually responding to is that voice
The
and
sound.
that action that particular actor and vocalist is making, and the intention that's behind it, and that's what they're responding to. Most people are crying when they leave opera,
Yeah.
and I think that's kind of our approach in at Teatro del Sol. And we're going to sort of keep it there. I think in terms of like the choices of shows that we pick are also kind of written in a way that you can actually understand it. Sometimes like Lorenzo's character will actually not literally translate what's just said in Spanish, but that there's something that's touched on that you can actually go back and go, oh, I heard that earlier.
Sort
in
of
that
an echo of
Exactly.
what was said before.
Yeah, yeah.
I understand that.
So it kind of works in that way.
Yeah, it works. The display. I mean, I I saw it, and I know it works. It works. It's really admirable what happens there.
Yeah.
Um, of all these activities that are going on right now in the theater, like this, Philly is really
Yeah, booming.
booming with theater.
Yeah.
Um, this fringe
Yeah.
arts.
Yeah.
What's going on with that? Right
Fringe
now?
arts has been around for a good 20 years, or almost a little longer than that. But
Yeah.
they started out as this very sort of scrappy organization
Mhm.
that a lot of young artists wanted to do work and
Right.
like do it out in the street.
It was
and
immersive.
It
for
was
sure.
immersive and it needed to be free and raw and edgy and all of those things. Do you know what I mean? And experimental work, theater experimental work, things like that. And so that's how Fringe came about. I actually was a part of the very, very first Fringe. I'm dating myself just a little
Oh my
bit.
God.
But I was a part of the very, very, very first Fringe and directed a show for that called Rats. And see.
What year was that?
That was 90.
I knew it. I knew it was around
90s.
grunge garage band.
Yes, totally.
Time.
That's
Yeah,
totally
yeah.
right.
I saw that
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
Bring it back.
Yeah,
Too.
everybody
I wanna
wanted
see
to be
Rats.
edgy and dark, and so we started to do lots of outdoor theater and things like that. But you're right, grunge theater.
It all
was
makes
all
the
about-
culture.
it's
Bring
all
it
about-
back.
Bring
I
it
want to
back.
see Rats.
Yeah. We did a couple things for Fringe. The first play I directed of Erisa Ann Riley's was One Day Old, and we did that for the Fringe. So it gave an opportunity for all these young artists who wanted to self-produce, especially like playwrights who write.
Right.
They don't get a chance, like not lots of theaters actually choose their things to produce because they're so young. So like it gives these young artists an opportunity to actually self-produce, get known around the city. There's some
Right.
theater companies that have come out of the Fringe and sort of uplift. So I've directed a lot. Tana Kio Marquez did Bolas de Sangre during the Fringe Festival, and that's how we met. And now we're collaborators in Teatro del Sol. So and Yahaira Paredes was in that as well. And now she's in Good Cuban Girls.
Yeah, that's how you all met,
That's
right?
kinda how we
Yahaira
all
and
met.
Dana especially.
Yeah, I
It's
met
crazy.
Yahaira before because her ex-husband actually had reached out to me, who knew I worked in theater and knew she wanted to work in theater, and sort of connected us briefly. And then Tana was a young artist that I met through the art and she was going to teach for us. And so through that, Tana was looking for an actress to play the mother in Bolas de Sangre, and that's a very hefty role. And I was
Yeah.
like, I know the right person for you. And
No way. I had no idea that you were the
Yahaira
one that suggested
Paredes.
Yahaira.
Well,
And
Oh my God.
Yahaira apparently is well known in Venezuela.
In Venezuela. for
Yeah.
being-
Yeah,
like a
so-
famous soap opera star.
Right.
In the 80s.
In the
Look those
80s, yeah.
pictures up. The
Yeah.
hair is fabulous and the acting is great.
It's amazing. And she's, as the abuela in Good Cuban Girls, is just phenomenal.
Yeah, she's phenomenal. That was a great piece of acting.
Yeah.
No, she's phenomenal.
Very
Yeah.
moving to see that.
Yeah.
What do you prefer, comedy or drama?
Oh my God.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I it's funny, I've gravitated towards sort of family dramedies right now. I think
Right.
that we did La Gringa last year, and that was sort of a family dramedy.
Mhm.
And then Good Cuban Girls is also that. I gravitate more to sort of, and that's kind of where it is. And funny enough for me is because I think I grew up I was the only boy in the family, so I had like women around me all the time. So like somehow these last couple shows, it's really about women being
Mhm.
uplifted, right? And I think that's just an influence of my upbringing. But normally I actually like sort of the avant-garde and a little bit more experimental actually, and more magical realism. I love magical realism. I would love, to do like, I don't know, Isabella Allende's House of Spirits or,
Incredible.
like something like that. So I do love that avenue as well. Dramas though are really good too. Sink
Yeah.
our teeth in, but
I love magical realism. I grew up reading magical realism and
Yeah.
studying it. So I think it's something super interesting to put on stage,
Yeah.
like to translate that,
Yeah.
because there's so much room to play and and figure out, because we're suspending your disbelief when you're on stage. So there's there's all this room to play, and like what's reality, what's happening, like time kind of freezes, and it's super interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think place like this, like Good Cuban Girls, is a dramedy, and it works so well that way. Like there's people that come, audience members, that say we were expecting a comedy, and then they end up they're crying by the end of it. They're like, what's happening?
Yeah.
And then people that expect a drama are laughing
Yeah.
so hard, and they're like, what, we were not ready for this. And so the balance of both is
Yeah.
it's such a journey.
Yeah.
It just takes you through like this whole story with this family for 2 hours. So I love that. But
And then it has an element of magical realism in it as well.
True.
Sounds like a good dish of rice and beans.
Yes, that is.
yes.
Oh, that's a really good way of actually describing this play. Actually, it is a good dish.
One of the best examples of magical realism, which was actually Garcia Marquez and that whole.
Marquez,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tana apparently is related to Garcia Marquez.
Yeah, I think.
Is she really?
Yeah,
I think so.
yeah.
I never asked her. Wow.
Yeah, she said that to me. So, Garcia Marquez, by the way, we're talking about telenovelas and radionovelas and all that.
Right.
The first time I heard his name, I was a little kid. He wrote a radionovela,
Wow.
Yango el Gitano.
Oh my god.
And I remember, like, my mother and everybody was fascinated with this, following it. Like, I thought that must be like, who knows what? Because I don't want to say how old I am, but
Wait, where did you grow up?
But Jesus had short
Where
pants.
were you
then.
watching this? Oh my god.
Jesus didn't wear
Where did you
pants.
grow up? Where were you watching?
And
Or
Bogota,
listening,
Jesus.
listening.
and Bogota.
Listening to
Jesus had
radio.
short pants.
And
Jesus.
Not Jesus.
Ah, Bogota,
but
okay,
Jesus.
okay.
in Bogota, Colombia. I
Colombiano.
stole that from a friend of mine.
That's why you're like Garcia Marquez, which is
I know.
good. We love Garcia.
Yeah, but this magical realism it's amazing. One of the best examples in American movies that I have seen is the Milagro Beanfield War.
Oh, it's so
Yeah.
good.
And-
That's such a great movie.
And with no explanation at all,
Yes.
it's
just
just
happens.
there.
Yeah.
And so, like, all of a
Yeah.
sudden you realize that this was happening.
Like Water for Chocolate. Is
Yeah,
another
that's
one.
What-
I was
what-
literally
what-
trying to figure that out. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yes.
So very well done, because
Yeah.
I mean it
Yeah.
could be clumsy, if somebody doesn't know how to.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's a
Very
tricky part
clumsy.
of it, for sure.
Yeah, it's tricky. I find
Yes.
a lot of American audiences have trouble with magical realism.
Mhm.
Because they have no imagination.
Thank you.
The Ringos have no imagination.
They have so much trouble
because
with it.
everything is given.
You
Yes.
just, you
Right.
just
So the
sold like
expectation-
250 million people down the river.
And
Yeah,
what have they done to our
no
cultures?
imagination.
What have they done to our culture? I'm not talking about Native, Latinx, Asian, or Black.
But I've
The
always
other,
wondered.
the other, I mean, even when you start to look at Irish, even the expectation I have of Irish tales and Irish lore,
Yeah.
it's still, only on a certain lane.
Yeah.
It
yeah.
doesn't. You have to go way back.
Yeah.
And the old school Irish,
Yeah.
they kind of have that magic.
Yeah.
They kind of have that imagination. But a lot of the cultures, they're very flat.
It's true.
It's
But the
no
black
much of
community
the-
actually connects to it very well. Like
Yes, yeah.
Toni Morrison.
Yeah, exactly.
And all the,
Daughters of Dust.
yes, yeah. So like, there's a lot of magical realism, and it comes from being a spiritual person and being a spiritual culture, and all of those sort of that time and the
Right,
place
right.
and worlds colliding at one time. So like,
And our folklore, our
folklore, yeah.
Right.
our stories are about spirit. There's
Right.
just, and even in the Asian community, was just talking to a friend of mine about K-pop, and she's into the Korean version of telenovelas.
yeah.
Mhm.
And they have
That's
this
so
whole
prevalent.
thing, and
Yeah.
but every house has a altar.
Yeah.
If you go into
Yeah.
even Asian business, have altars.
Yes. Yeah.
The connection to spirit is right there
Yeah.
every day for them. But the challenge, one thing I wanted to get before we have to get off the air is how would a Latinx or Hispanic young person, what pipeline would they go to? What would they do to get into theater or
Into
get
theater.
into acting?
Yeah.
That lives in Philadelphia.
Yeah, they should search out folks like me and Lorenza,
Yeah.
and because we are there, we are
Right,
here.
right.
It was very funny when I was in middle school. I had no idea where to go, and I went to my
Right.
counselor at school and was like, "Is there an art school I can go to? Because I really cannot go to the local high
Right,
school.
right.
Right.
It's not where I
You,
want to
you,
go."
you had agency and license in middle school. That's crazy.
I
I
was
know,
like
that is crazy.
determined
I was just
and
thinking about that.
ambitious.
12 years
So
old.
young.
I was
It's
literally,
like,
I need
I'm
to,
not going to make it.
Yeah,
Unless you
Right.
give it to me
Right.
now.
It was literally like I knew that there was a world out there. I just didn't know how to access it.
Right.
There was no
Especially
internet
right.
at the
I was gonna say
time.
even the libraries didn't have. Well, even the libraries wouldn't
Yeah.
tell you. They wouldn't give you information. You go to the
Right.
library. Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah.
They're like, what?
Yeah.
It was an old, uncultured, not close to spirit person at the library.
Yes, exactly. So I actually really went straight to my counselor and was like, "Hey, and a lot of kids don't have that agency.
Right,
They
right,
don't
right,
have
right,
that.
right.
But now we have so much theater in this city, and they have arts education programs, and we're going into public schools currently and sending in Latin teaching artists and black teaching artists and Asian teaching artists that kind of look like those children, and then bringing them to the theater.
Right,
so
right.
that is kind of
That's
happening. There may be some kids who may have to do a little bit more work,
Right.
but they should always go, if they're starting out that early, go to their to one of their teachers, one of their art teachers at school.
That's a good recommendation. I
Yeah.
think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Before we finish, I want to ask you one question. Not what's the meaning of life, but something
Deep
more
and
that
profound,
you'll be able to
like
answer.
Fernando always
So
asks.
profound. In a short couple of phrases, where do you see yourself in the future in terms of your career as an actress?
Oh gosh, I think the meaning of life is easier to answer.
I was gonna say that. I was like, Fernando, come on.
No, I mean, like, what do you
say so
dream?
afraid.
What do you dream about? What do you
No,
like to be?
yeah, I know what you mean. I think I would love to be living off of my art, and I love what I do. So being able, in 5 years, I would love to continue to be working in the theater arts, in the performance world, and doing projects that are empowering women and highlighting my culture, for sure. Like, I don't want that my Latinidad to ever be erased or not being something that is beneficial for the rest of the community.
I just heard something on NPR about the difficulty Latinx generations having trouble adjusting to whatever the marketplace and all that. Jose, same question.
Same question.
I mean, you're already
I'm
very
doing
accomplished.
I'm
but,
doing
Yeah.
it.
So.
But there's always room for growth.
Mhm.
And for me, is to be able to run Teatro del Sol independently, pay a full-time staff, and become nationally recognized for the work that we do in Philadelphia as the only bilingual theater company in Philadelphia, and the first. Maybe not the only in 5 years, though.
Right.
And
Right.
that's what we hope. We hope it's not the only one. But to really be full-time doing it, Right now I'm full-time working at another theater. But I would love to be just focused on doing this. And also, I have other things that I want to do. I want to do some, film and TV and direct some film and TV, bilingual film and TV. So
Yeah, that's cool.
Well,
that's a
I
personal
admire
goal.
your dedication and talent. I mean, it takes a lot of strength to keep doing something that is challenging. But that's why I ask, what do you see yourself in the
Yeah.
future? And I think
Right.
we all think about no matter how old you are and no matter what you do, it's like you're always thinking about where's that
next?
horizon over there.
Right,
That's
yeah.
true. Yeah.
So I want to thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jose Avilés and Lorenza Bernasconi
Thank
for
you
being
so
with us
much.
today. That was quite interesting. And Martin Pratt, better
Sí.
late than never. Thank you for coming.
Hey.
So, a nuestros oyentes, muchas gracias por su sintonía en el día de hoy. Se despide Fernando Méndez aquí en la Mesa Redonda en compañía de Johan Bermúdez Altabrero. Los esperamos a
Johan.
ustedes. Hasta la próxima.